date. Okay. Appears to be working.
Got it. So you say got it. Hang in the okay.
So you all have to consent to being live streamed. Date. Okay. Appears to be working. Wait a minute. What? Oh, I have to get rid of the echo. There it goes. I've gotten rid of the echo. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Hello.
And we have 10 people. Okay, that's good. Almost everybody is here. Last week, we wound up doing scene 8 two times each with 2 different groups of people on 2 different days. The Thursday session, where there were 3 of us, is recorded and on YouTube. And scene 9 is a long one, although scene 11, I think, is longer. And is Bud isn't here yet? Okay. Well, Scott, if you...
What book is this? Is this book 6?
No. It is scene, I'll show you what we have. We are at scene 9.
Well, the link I got is divided into books. John Milton Reading Room from Dartmouth College.
I see.
That's not the right link.
Well, I don't know. I got text with references.
Does it say Eden?
What is it? Literary analysis?
Hang on a sec. Having my own technical difficulties. Okay, here is the text, which I'm sharing, so you should be able to see it.
I can see it, yes.
Okay. And I'm just, right now I'm assigning parts. I'd like you to play God.
I would be honored.
Outstanding.
Okay, where is my?
And Matt, Satan is not in this scene. Would you be Jesus?
Sure.
Or the Son, as Milton labels him. And then the other 3 parts, the Karchers are not here, are they? Okay. Father Longsworth, would you be Adam?
I'm looking for the script. I don't have it. I just have the one you sent. Only have the first 4 scenes.
Okay, do you see it on the screen?
Yeah, I can see it on the screen.
Okay. So you're Adam. And Ursula, would you be Eve, or do you want to just listen?
No, that'd be fine. I'd love to participate. For once.
Excellent. You can be Eve in scene 9.
Right. Gotcha.
Ursula. And Charlie and Sharon, if you would both take a look at Raphael.
Okay.
Yes.
Want to take turns?
Yeah.
Okay.
Alternating or
Yeah. Yeah, would you alternate? Because as I am trying to drive home the point that Greg is not here today to argue with me about, that angels have no gender. They are neither male nor female. And if they are represented in art or literature as either, that is the prejudice of the artist or writer. Not anything having to do with spiritual reality of any kind.
Okay.
All right, so we've all got our parts.
Okay.
And Patsy and Monica.
I'm making a noise. I don't want to do that. How do I get rid of that? I should have.
All right, well, why don't we just dive right in?
Hold on. I got it.
Can you all see scene 9 when I put it on the screen?
Okay, so then Native of Heaven, is it?
Mhm.
Okay, yeah, I got it. No, I don't need the screen.
Excellent. I'm going to leave it up there for everybody else to follow along because not everybody has paper.
Okay.
And action.
Native of heaven, for other place, none can have heaven such glorious shape contain. Since by descending from the thrones above, those happy places thou hast deigned the while to want and honor these, vouchsafe with us to rest, and what the garden choices bears, to sit and taste till this meridian heat be over and the sun more cool decline.
Sharon,
Adam.
do you want to start as Raphael?
Oh.
Sharon?
Sure.
Okay, you start.
Adam, I therefore came, nor art thou such created, or such place hast here to dwell, as may not oft invite those spirits of heaven to visit thee. Lead on then where thy bower o'ershades, for these mid hours till evening rise. Hail, mother of mankind, whose fruitful womb shall fill the world, more numerous with thy sons than with this various fruits, the trees of God.
Heavenly stranger, please to taste these bounties, which our nourisher, for whom all perfect good unmeasured out descends, to us for food and for delight, hath caused the earth to yield, unsavory food perhaps to spiritual natures. Only this I know, that one celestial Father gives to all.
Charlie?
Therefore, what he gives, whose praise be ever sung, to man in part spiritual, may of purest spirits be found no ungrateful food. And food alike, those pure intelligential substances require as doth your rational, and both contain within them every lower faculty. Wonder not then what God for you saw good, if I refuse not, but convert as you to proper substance. Time may come when men with angels may participate, and find no inconvenient diet, nor too light fare. And from these corporal nutriments, perhaps your bodies may at last turn all to spirit, if ye be found obedient, and retain unalterably firm his love entire.
Let's keep going, but I have a serious objection to what was just said, so let's get back to that later.
What meant that caution joined? If he be found obedient, can we want obedience then to him, or possibly his love desert? Who formed us from the dust and placed us here, full to the utmost measure of what bliss human desires can seek or apprehend.
Son of heaven and earth, attend that thou art happy, O to God, that is, to thy, that thou continuest such, O to thyself, that is, to thy obedience, therein stand. This was that caution given thee, be advised. God made thee perfect, not immutable, and good he made thee, but to persevere, he left it in thy power, ordained thy will by nature free, not o'erruled by fate. Can hearts not free be tried whether they serve willing or no? Who will but what they must by destiny, or can no other choose? Myself and all the angelic host that stand in sight of God enthroned, our happy state hold as you yours, while our obedience holds. On other surety none. Freely we serve because we freely love, as in our will to love or not. In this we stand or fall, and some are fallen, to disobedience fallen, and so from heaven to deepest hell. Oh, fall from what high state of bliss into what woe. at thy request, and that thou mayst beware by what is past. To thee I have revealed what might have else to human race been hid, the discord which befell and war in heaven amongst the angelic powers, and the deep fall of those too high aspiring who rebelled with Satan. He who envies now thy state, who now is plotting how he may seduce thee from obedience, that with him, bereaved of happiness, thou mayst partake his punishment, eternal misery.
Great things and full of wonder in our ears, far differing from this world, thou hast revealed the divine interpreter, by favor sent down from the Empyrean to forewarn us timely of what might else have been our loss, unknown, which human knowledge could not reach, of what we are. But since thou hast vouchsafed gently for our instruction to impart things above earthly thought, which ye concerned our knowing, as to highest wisdom seemed, deign to descend now lower, and relate what may no less perhaps avail us unknown. How first began his heaven, which we behold, distant so high, with moving fires adorned.
Know then that after Lucifer from heaven fell with his flaming legions through the deep into his place, and the great sun returned victorious with his saints, the omnipotent eternal Father from his throne beheld their multitude, and to his Son thus spake.
At least our envious foe hath failed, who thought all like himself rebellious, by whose aid this inaccessible high strength, the seat of deity supreme, us deposes. He trusteth to have seized, and into fraud drew many, whom their place theirs knows that here no more. But least his heart exalt him in the harm already done, to have depeopled heaven by my damage fondly deemed. I can repair that determent, if such it be to lose, self-lost, and in a moment will create another world, out of one man, a race of men innumerable there to dwell. Witness this new made world, another heaven, from heaven gate not far, founded in view of amplitude almost immense, with stars numerous, and every star perhaps a world.
Something yet of doubt remains, which only thy solution can resolve. When I behold this goodly frame, this world and atom with the firmament compared, and all her numbered stars that seem to roll round this opacious earth, this punctual spot, one day and night, in all their vast survey, useless besides. Reasoning, I oft admire how nature wise and frugal could commit such disproportions with superfluous hand, so many nobler bodies to create, greater, so manifold to this one use.
To ask or search, I blame thee not, for heaven is as the book of God before thee set, wherein to read his wondrous works and learn his seasons, hours, or days, or months, or years, this to attain, whether heaven move or earth, imports not. If thou reckon right, the rest from man or angel, the great architect did wisely to conceal and not divulge. Leave them to God above. Him serve in fear of other creatures, as him pleases best. Wherever placed, let him dispose. Joy thou in what he gives to thee, this paradise and thy fair love. Heaven is for thee too high to know what passes there. Be lowly wise. Think only what concerns thee and thy being.
How fully hast thou satisfied me, pure intelligence of heaven, angel serene, and freed from intricacies, taught to live the easiest way, nor with perplexing thoughts to interrupt the sweet of life, from which God hath bid dwell far off all anxious cares. But apt the mind of fancy is to rove unchecked, and of her roving is no end, till warned or by experience taught, she learn that which before us lies in daily life is the prime wisdom. What is more is fum. Thee I have heard relenting, what was done ere my remembrance. Now hear me relate my story, which perhaps thou hast not heard. For man to tell how human life began is hard. For who himself beginning knew, desire thee still longer to converse, induced me, as new walked from soundless sleep, soft on the flowery herb I found me laid. Straight toward heaven my wandering eyes I turned, and gazed the while the ample sky, till raised by quick instinctive motion, up I sprung, stood on my feet. About me round I saw hill dale and shady woods and sunny plains and liquid laps of morning streams. By these creatures that lived and moved and walked and flew, birds on the branches wobbling, all things smiled with fragrance and with joy my heart flowed. Myself I then cruised, and limb by limb surveyed, and sometimes went and sometimes ran. But what I saw, or where, or from what cause, knew not. To speak I tried, and forthwith spake. My tongue obeyed, and readily could name whate'er I saw. Thou sun, said I, fair light, and thou enlightened earth, so fresh and gay, ye hills and dales, ye rivers, woods and plains, and ye that live and more, fair creatures, tell, if ye saw how came I thus, how here.
Thy mansion wants thee, Adam, rise, first man, of men innumerable ordained, first father, called by thee I come thy guide, to the garden of bliss, thy seat prepared. I am the author of all this thou seest, above, or round about thee, or beneath. This paradise I give thee, count it thine, to till and keep, and of the fruit to eat, of every tree that in the garden grows, eat freely with a glad heart. Fear here no dearth, but of the tree whose operation brings knowledge of good and ill, which I have set the pledge of thy obedience and thy faith. Amid the gardens by the tree of life, remember what I warn thee, shun to taste, and shun the bitter consequence. For know, the day thou eatest thereof, my sole command transgressed, inevitably thou shalt die. From that day, mortal, and this happy state shall lose, expelled from hence into a world of woe and sorrow.
Oh, by what name? For thou above all these, above mankind, or aught than mankind higher, surpasseth far my naming. How may I adore thee, author of this universe? And all this good to man, for whose well-being so ample and with hands so liberal, thou hast provided all things. But with me, I see not who partakes in solitude, what happiness? Who can enjoy alone, or all enjoying, what containment find?
What callest thou solitude? Is not the earth with various living creatures, and the air replenished, and all these at thy command to come and play before thee? Knowest not thou not their language and their ways? They also know, and reason not contemplatively. With these find pastime, and bear rule. Thy realm is large.
Let not my words offend thee, heavenly power, my maker. Be propitious while I speak. Hast thou not made me hear by thy substitute, and these inferior far beneath me set? Among unequals, what society can sort, what harmony or true delight?
A nice and subtle happiness I see, thou to thyself proposest, in the choice of thy associates, Adam, and wilt taste no pleasure, though in pleasure solitary. What thinkest thou then of me, and this my state? Seem I to thee sufficiently possessed of happiness or not? Who am alone from all eternity, for none, I know, second to me or like, equal much less. How high have I then with whom to hold converse save with the creatures which I made, and those to me inferior, infinite descents, beneath what other creatures are to thee?
The height and depth of thy eternal ways, all human thoughts come short, supreme of things. Thou in thyself art perfect, and in thee is no deficiency found. Not so is man, but in degree, the cause of his desire. My conversation with his like to help collateral love, and dearest amity. Thou in thy secrecy, although alone, best with thyself accompanied, seekest not social communication, yet so pleased canst raise thy creature to what height thou wilt.
What next I bring shall please thee, be assured. Thy likeness, thy fit help, thy other self, thy wish exactly to thy heart's desire.
Mine eyes he closed, but opened, left the cell of fancy, my internal sight, by which abstract as in a trance, methought I saw, though sleeping, where I lay, and saw the shapes still glorious before whom awake I stood.
Stop there, Father. I'm going to point something out here. There's a wonderful stage direction there. Sun retires, end flashback. When did the flashback start?
A ways back with Eve.
Yeah, there was a stage direction for Eve to retire.
Right.
And that was the beginning of the flashback. And the flashback was Adam describing the circumstances of his creation.
Before Eve.
And his loneliness,
Right.
Yes.
right? It's like a reason for Eve.
Right. Right. Yeah, and that was back on page 53.
Right.
And he was addressing, and this was in the context, this whole flashback was in the context of Adam talking to Raphael and explaining things that maybe he thinks Raphael doesn't already know, which may or may not be the case. But perhaps we will see now that we're out of the flashback. And
But why is God? I mean, it seems to me that where every part that is Son is actually God. I mean, is this supposed to be Jesus in the beginning, or is this?
yes, God, when it says Son, That is Jesus, God the Son. But remember, what does it say about God in Eden in chapter 3 of Genesis? God was walking in the
He
garden in the
walks.
cool of the day.
Right.
So there's an anthropomorphism there
Mhm.
that invites Trinitarian interpretation.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay, and that is, and traditional Christian theology, by this time, by long before this time, held God the Son is the author of creation. He is the person of the Trinity by whom the Trinity creates the world. And we know that from Genesis 1, and God said, let there be light, and there was light. And then it is God's word in Genesis 1 that creates everything. And God the Son is also God the Word.
Mhm.
So because God, the three in one, creates by the Word, it is Christ who is the active divine presence in creation.
Right.
So he's the
Okay.
one who has the personal relationship with Adam.
Okay. And God's only occurrence in this scene was when he was having his little chat with Raphael about the devil and the falling out and all that.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
That's right. That was back on page 50-51.
Yeah. Okay.
Father
Thank
Michael?
you.
Yes, Monica.
Yes, I have a question then. So it's not Jesus Christ, the man, as we're talking historically, in the year 0, because creation was before that, right?
Yes. Yes.
It's not Jesus, the man that was born out of Mary, is the spirit.
No,
of
it's
Jesus?
the same thing,
The
because
same thing?
this is what's called the doctrine of the pre-existent Christ.
Oh, okay.
And I think that we moderns can actually understand it better than the medievals because we have time travel literature,
Yeah.
if I can call on that, because, everything that happens to the Trinity happens outside of time. And
Oh,
while the incarnation is occurring, God is inside time, but then Christ ascends to the right hand of his heavenly Father's throne, and he is outside time once again in body.
okay.
Okay? Heaven is non-physical, but Christ is physical because of the incarnation, and he returns there from his own perspective in time, embodied. And so the doctrine of the pre-existent Christ holds that Christ appeared in the creation before his own birth,
Mm.
Before Jesus' birth.
before
the
Jesus.
human birth of Jesus. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's the same thing. There's only one
Yeah.
God the Son, and when he had, and the body is only the body. There's not a Jesus and a Christ, and they're different people.
No. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah,
Thank you.
you're welcome. All right, Father, I interrupted you, and go ahead.
Mine eyes he closed, but oft left the cell of fancy, my internal sight, by which abstract, as in a trance, methought I saw, though sleeping where I lay, and saw the shape still glorious before whom awake I stood, who stooping opened my left side, and took from thence a rib, with cordial spirits warm, the rib he formed and fashioned with his hands. Man-like, but different sex, so lovely fair, that what seemed fair in all the world seemed now mean, or in her summed up, in her contained, and in her looks, what from that time infused sweetness in my heart unfelt before.
Felt before, interesting.
She disappeared and left me dark. I walked and find her, or forever to deplore her loss, and other pleasures all abjure. When out of hope, behold her, not far off, such as I saw her in my dream, adorned with what all earth of heaven shall bestow to make her amiable. Oh, she came. Grace was in all her steps, heaven in her eye, in every gesture, dignity and love. Thus I have told thee all my state and brought my story to the sum of earthly bliss which I enjoy, and must confess to find in all things else delight indeed. But such as used or not, works in the mind no change, nor vehement desire. These delicacies, I mean of taste, sight, smell, herbs, fruits, and flowers, walks, and the melody of birds, but here far otherwise transported I behold, transported touch, her passion first I felt, commotion strange, in all enjoyment else superior, and unmoved here only weak against the charm of beauty's powerful glance, or ere other creatures. For when I approach her loveliness, so absolute she seems, all higher knowledge in her presence falls degraded. Wisdom in discourse with her loses discount, nascent, and like folly shows, authority and reason on her waist, gentleness of mind and nobleness their seat, veiled in her loveliest, and creature and awe above her, about her as a guard, angelic blessed.
Accuse not nature, she hath done her part. Do thou but thine. And be not diffident of wisdom, she deserts thee not, if thou dismiss not her. When most thou needst her nigh, by attributing overmuch to things less excellent, as thou thyself perceivest. For what admirest thou? What transports thee so, and outside? Fair, no doubt, and worthy well thy cherishing, thy honoring, and thy love, not thy subjection. Weigh with her thyself. What higher in her society thou find'st attractive, human, rational, love still. In loving, thou dost well. In passion, not.
Neither her outside form so fair, nor aught in procreation common of all kinds. So much delight me in those graceful acts, those thousand decencies that daily flow from all her words and actions, mixed with love and sweet compliance, which declare unfeigned union of mind, or in us both one soul. To love thou balmest me not, for love thou sayest leads up to heaven, is both the way and guide. Bear with me then, if lawful what I ask. Love not the heavenly spirits, and how their love express they, by looks only, or do they mix irradiance, virtual or immediate touch?
Let it suffice thee that thou knowest us happy, and without love, no happiness. Wherever pure thou in the body enjoyest, and pure thou wert created, we enjoy in eminence, and obstacle find none of membrane, joint, or limb, exclusive bars. Easier than air with air, if spirits embrace, total they mix, union of pure with pure, desiring nor restrained conveyance need as flesh to mix with flesh or soul with soul. But I can now no more. The parting sun beyond the earth's green cape and verdant isles, Hesperian sets, my signal to depart.
Very nicely done, everyone. Considering this is mostly a cold read, you guys are really
It's a cold
good.
I didn't expect to read this.
Where's that
back-
sentence going to, man?
Where is it ending? Yes.
Yes, going backward, The last speech of Adam was really extraordinary and took a theological position. A theological position that sex existed before the fall. and that as with all things in the creation, what did God say about everything in creation? It is good.
It is good.
And so he takes that position very, very clearly. And it is part of the connection of man to the animals, because it is procreation, something that all creatures in the world, at least on the earth, share in common. This brings me back to a problem at the beginning, where Raphael says, was it Raphael?
What page?
I'm going all the way back to the beginning.
It was food. It's about food. It's page 48.
Yeah, 48.
Right?
Yes.
Do you eat or not?
That's right. To eat or not. And let's see. If I refuse not, but convert as you to proper substance, time may come. Here it is. Bottom of page 48. In fact, why don't I put it back up? Because, and remember, we don't know if what every character says is the theological position of the author. That would be a fallacy and not something that we should necessarily accept, but we should ask about it. What Raphael says on page 48, and I'm going to, there we go. Okay, let me put this back up here so you can see what I'm talking about while I'm talking about it. That's a good idea, isn't it? Wonder not then, it's too bad I haven't figured out how to highlight this. Wonder not then what God for you saw good, if I refuse not, but convert as you to proper substance. Time may come when men with angels may participate, and find no inconvenient diet nor too light fare. And from these corporal nutriments, perhaps your bodies may at last turn all to spirit, if ye be found obedient, and retain unalterably firm his love entire. Okay. In the mouth of Raphael, we have the idea which is still so strong in most aspects of the Christian world, that there is something not something superior about the angels so much as something to be denigrated about the created world. Okay. And here it makes sense that Raphael would say that.
Because he's an angel.
Exactly, because he's an angel and he has a bias in favor of his own kind. Right? Or at least that's probably how you would write it.
It's Greek, right?
The
fall is we fell from heaven.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And we'll get into this a little bit more as we get to the end, because that, of course, is the whole idea of the fall. And what Milton is grappling with, I think I've made my point there. What Milton is grappling with is the idea of the fall. And the fall is not the only way of understanding the Genesis Eden stories. And I think probably what we will do to end this is go back to the scripture in light of having read this and find the questions that Milton answers by writing this, because I've been listening to lots of lectures about Milton the last 2 months on YouTube. Thank you. And one of them actually said what I was thinking, that this is Christian Midrash, right? And Midrash is interpretation by storytelling, by filling in the gaps, okay? And that's a biblical interpretive method that St. Paul uses, okay? He uses it especially in the epistle to the Galatians, where he's saying things that don't necessarily fit our idea of what the original scripture was, but he's answering questions by doing it and telling us what this should mean for us now in light of Christ. So we should go back and take a look at that, the original, and then talk about everything he does here. The idea, though, that, let's put it, Patsy, what were you going to say?
Well, I was just thinking that I never thought of angels this way before, but Raphael, it's kind of like the oldest child in a family, and your siblings, you love them and you will watch over them and care for them, but never goes away the question of, why didn't my parents think they were necessary?
Yeah, Milton is definitely writing the archangels with that, with that bias. And that's interesting, because that's Satan's whole position. Okay. Milton gives the motivation for the fall of the fallen angels in the introduction of the Son, of God the Son by God the Father to the heavenly court, which doesn't make theological sense for many reasons. A choice that Milton did not make, which others had made, was that the motivation for the war in heaven was that God announced he was going to create man and announced that he was going to create the physical universe. Milton did not go with that, which is interesting. And remember, the biblical basis for all of this with the angels is that one paragraph in Revelation 12, there was war in heaven. And this is all about explaining Genesis in light of that idea that the angels fell first. And one of the discussions I want to have at the very end of this, after we look at the scriptures, is, does this all fit? It's Christian tradition, and we accept it, but we should look at the original biblical text also and wonder about a fall before the fall. I just want to plant that questioning seed in everyone's mind. Let's wonder about the fall before the fall, by which I mean the fall of Satan and the angels who join him.
One technical aside,
Sure.
on page 57, there is something, I don't even know what it is. On page 57, it's like under D11551, it says, wisdom in discourse with her loses, I don't even know what that discount.
Okay.
What is that?
That is discountenanced. Is what that word is, discountenanced. And which of course means loses face.
Yeah. Okay. Thank
Wisdom
you.
in
I
her
just couldn't
discourse
figure out
with her
what-
loses discountenanced. And
He's saying that her beauty is greater than wisdom.
Yeah. Milton really is a romantic,
Yeah.
isn't he?
Yeah.
And it makes sense that the romantic poets in the 19th century loved Milton. I mean, starting with the marriage of heaven and hell. I'm blanking out on Tiger, Tiger, burning bright in the forest of the night.
James. William James, William Blake.
William Blake. Yeah. Blake kind of starts the romantic view of Milton. And Blake said of Milton, Milton was of the devil's party without knowing it. Which was certainly the view of the Roman Church. If you were a Roman Catholic, this was a banned book until the last generation. You weren't supposed to read it. Now it's taught in Catholic schools. I'd be very curious as to some of the things that come out of it, actually.
Yeah, Milton says authority and reason on her weight, meaning she is superior. Eve is superior to authority and reason.
Yeah.
Which is a really interesting way to look at women, I think.
Well, actually, it's Adam who's saying this.
That's
So
Adam.
Adam is telling us that she's here and I can't even think. I mean, I'm just And then Raphael's like, okay, all right, yes, I get it. You can love her, but you got to still use your head. Don't let her guide you if she's going to mislead you. I think this is
In
foretelling.
loving thou dost well, in passion not.
Like,
Don't lose your head here.
Yeah, there is some foreshadowing there, isn't there? Yeah.
The question, I have a trivial question on 48, page 48.
Mm-hmm.
When it says, you know, that eventually our bodies may at last turn all to spirit if we're obedient enough, the angels don't eat. Is that the idea?
Well, that's what Raphael thinks, and that
Yeah.
is a very popular view throughout Christian history. Okay, and it's not from the Hebrew Bible. It's not from Genesis. Okay, it's it's one of the most Greek things.
I mean, what
Yeah.
you're living on air, you don't need to eat then? I mean, I don't.
Oh, the angels do not eat. The angels are incorporeal. They do not have bodies. When they interact with human beings, they have the appearance only.
But where does it say that in the Bible? It tells you that they don't eat.
Yes, actually, Jesus says it.
Okay.
They do not have bodies, and
There were a few nuts years ago that said they lived on air. You know, they had
I
a
don't
movement.
think so.
You know, it was a husband and wife, and they had a bunch of followers, and I don't know what they did.
Yeah. Well,
Right.
that's sort of an aspiration, that if you somehow transcend the earthly body and become pure spirit, you won't need to eat anything. And I don't agree with that myself, but
it's actually a heresy.
it's a heresy, right?
So you're on solid ground there, Charlie.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
And
But-
Ursula, that guy was caught sneaking out to 7-Eleven like at 3 a.m. on several
McDonald's.
entertainment or something. I just read about that this week. Small world.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
and
but
the
he must
idea
have
there
gotten the
is
idea from something like this, you know, when, you know, that he was sort of angelic, trying to think that he was a higher, superior being.
right, and the angels are not higher superior beings. Okay, they are a different order.
They
And
have
of course,
a job to do, right?
yes, they have a job to do. In the Middle Ages, there was the great chain of being, which put angels above men. And we're not certain yet, just from this, if Milton agrees with that.
Mhm.
Okay. But it's not scriptural.
Right.
They have a role to play. They are part of the created order. But you know, when God creates the world in Genesis 1, when he creates the cosmos, the universe, the angels aren't mentioned.
Mhm.
Okay. They, at least in the telling of it, are an afterthought.
But in the story of Jesus, there are lots of angels, you know, that talk to Mary and talk
Yes.
to Elizabeth and reassure them that it's okay, even if they're worried. You know, this
Right.
is God's will and they should go along with it.
Right. And there are angels in the Old Testament too,
Sure.
plenty of them.
Right.
Appear to
There's lots of
Abraham.
them. Yeah.
Yeah. But their creation is not described in the Hebrew Bible. It's
It's true.
tradition and scriptural interpretation in the interstices, stuff between parts of the Bible. So there's all kinds of things to argue about, which is a good thing. When we engage the scripture, we discuss it and sometimes argue about it. We have some time left, which we could use to start over, which is what we've been doing. We've been doing this 2 times through. Matt, would you be Adam?
Okay.
And let's see. Scott and Monica, could you trade off being Raphael?
Okay.
Okay, and I will try to
Yes,
track
Father
of-
Michael.
Yes,
Father Michael, I don't feel very well tonight. Can I just keep listening?
of course, of course.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm a little out of sorts.
Sure, sure. I just went with, let's see, Patsy, would you trade off with Scott as Raphael?
Sure.
Okay. Scott, Patsy. And Scott, Patsy. Bessie, would you like a part or do you want to
Listen.
listen? Okay.
Just Adam, Raphael, who else is in there?
All right.
You got Eve in there.
Yeah. Okay. Sharon, would you be Eve?
Absolutely.
And all that's left is God. All right.
So,
Father Longsworth, would you be the Son? And Charlie, you be God.
oh, okay.
But don't let it get to your head.
Yeah, yes,
Ah.
yes.
Too late for that.
Very, very important. Now I have to get back to the beginning. There we go.
39, yeah.
Milton's way of doing narration by flashback is interesting. And this is not just Milton, it's also Professor Richmond, the way he has arranged things. All right, Matt, action.
Bang.
Native of heaven or other place, none can than heaven such a glorious shape contain. Since by descending from the thrones above, those happy place, thou hast deigned a while to want and honor these. Vouchsafe with us to rest, and what the garden choicest bears, to sit and taste, till this meridian heat be over, and the sun more cool decline.
Scott, you want to start as Raphael?
Adam, I therefore came, nor art thou such created, or such place here hast here to dwell. Is may not oft invite those spirits of heaven to visit thee. Lead on then, where thou bower overshades, or those mid-hours till evening rise. Hail, mother of mankind, whose fruitful womb shall fill the world more numerous with thy sons than with these various fruits, the trees of God.
Heavenly stranger, please to taste these bounties which our nourisher, from whom all perfect good unmeasured out, descends to us for food and for delight hath caused the earth to yield. Unsavory food, perhaps, to spiritual natures, only this I know, that one celestial Father gives to all.
Patsy?
Therefore, what he gives, whose praise be ever sung, to man in part spiritual, may of purest spirits be found no ingrateful food, and food alike those pure intelligential substances require, as doth your rational, and both contain within them every lower faculty. Wonder not then what God for you saw good, if I refuse not, but convert as you to proper substance. Time may come when men with angels may participate and find no inconvenient diet, nor too light fare. And from these corporal nutriments, perhaps your bodies may at last turn all to spirit, if ye be found obedient and retain unalterably firm his love entire.
What meant that caution joined, if ye be found obedient? Can we want obedience then to him, or possibly his love desert, who formed us from the dust and placed us here, full to the utmost measure of what bliss human desires can seek or apprehend?
Scott?
Son of heaven and earth, attend, that thou art happy. O to God, that thou continuest such. O to thyself, that is, to thy obedience. Therein stand. This was that caution given thee. Be advised, God made thee perfect, not immutable, and good he made thee. But to preserve, he left it in thy power, ordained thy will by nature free, not overruled by fate. Can hearts not free be trifed whether they serve, willingly or no? Who will but what they must by destiny, and can no other choose? Myself and all the angelic host shall stand in sight of God enthroned. Our happy state, hold is yours, while our obedience holds. On others searching none, freely we serve, because we freely love. Is in our will to love or not, in this we stand or fall. And some are fallen, to disobedience fallen, and so from heaven to hell. Oh, fall from that what high state of bliss into what woe, at thy request, and that thou mayest beware by what is past, to thee I have revealed. But what have else to human race have had? The discord which befell, the war in heaven. Amongst the angelic powers, in the deepest fall of those too high aspiring who rebelled with Satan, he who envies now thy state, who now is plotting how he may seduce thee from obedience, that with him, bereaved of happiness, thou mayest partake his punishment, eternal misery.
Great things and full of wonder in our ears, far differing from this world, thou hast revealed thine divine interpreter, by favor sent down from the Imperium to forewarn us timely of what might else have been our loss, unknown which human knowledge could not reach of what we are. But since thou hast vouchsafed gently for our instruction to impart things above earthly thought, which yet concerned our knowing, as to highest wisdom seemed, deign to descend now lower and relate what may no less perhaps avail us known. How first began this heaven which we behold, distant so high, with moving fires adorned?
Know then that after Lucifer from heaven fell with his flaming legions through the deep into his place, and the great sun returned victorious with his saints, the omnipotent eternal Father from his throne beheld their multitude, and to his Son thus spake.
Pause here for a second. This is actually also a flashback. Okay, Raphael is presumably at this point telling the story, but it is being acted out by the actors playing God and the Son, having them advance. All right.
At least our envious foe hath failed, who thought all like himself rebellious, by whose aid this inaccessible high strength, the seat of deity supreme, us dispossessed, he trusted to have seized, and into fraud drew many, whom their place knows here no more. But lest his heart exalt him in the harm already done, to have dispeopled heaven, my damage fondly deemed I can repair, that detriment, if such it be to lose self-lost, and in a moment will create another world, out of one man a race of men innumerable, there to dwell. Witness this new made world, another heaven, from heaven's gate not far, bounded in view of amplitude almost immense, with stars numerous, and every star perhaps a world.
something yet of doubt remains, which only thy solution can resolve. When I behold this goodly frame, this world and atom with the firmament compared, and all her numbered stars that seem to roll round this opacous earth, this punctual spot, one day and night in all their vast survey. Useless besides. Reasoning, I oft admire how nature, wise and frugal, could commit such disproportions. With superfluous hand, so many nobler bodies to create, greater so manifold to this one use.
To ask or search, I blame thee not, for heaven is the book of God before thee set, wherein to read his wondrous works and learn. His seasons, hours, and days, or months, or years. This to attain, whether heaven move or earth, imports not, if thou reckon in right. The rest, from man or angel, the great architect did wisely to conceal and not divulge. Leave them to God above, him serve and fear. Of other creatures, as him pleases best. Wherever places, let him dispose. Joy thou in what he gives to thee, this paradise and thy fair love. Heaven is for thee too high to know what passes here. Be lowly wise, think only what concerns thee and thy being.
How fully hast thou satisfied me, pure intelligence of heaven, angel serene, and freed from intricacies, taught to live the easiest way, nor with perplexing thoughts to interrupt the sweet of life, from which God hath bid dwell far off all anxious cares. But apt the mind or fancy is to rove, unchecked, and of her roving is no end. Till warned or by experience taught, she learned that which before us lies in daily life is the prime wisdom. What is more is fume. Thee I have heard relating what was done, ere my remembrance. Now hear me relate my story, which perhaps thou hast not heard. For man to tell how human life began is hard, or who himself beginning knew. Desire with thee still longer to converse induced me. As new waked from sound sleep, soft on the flowery herb I found me laid, straight toward heaven my wandering eyes I turned, and gazed a while the ample sky, till raised by quick and instinctive motion I sprung, stood on my feet. About me round I saw hill, dale, and shady woods, and sunny plains, and liquid laps of murmuring streams. By these creatures that lived and moved and walked or flew, birds on branches warbling, all things smiled. With fragrance and with joy my heart overflowed. Myself I then pursued and limb by limb surveyed, and sometimes went and sometimes ran. But who I was, or where, or from what cause, knew not. To speak I tried, and forthwith spake. My tongue obeyed, and readily could name whatever I saw. Thou sun, said I, fair light, and thou enlightened earth, so fresh and gay. Ye hills and dales, ye rivers and woods and plains, and ye that live and move, fair creatures, tell, if ye saw how came I thus, how here?
Thy mansions once thee, Adam rised, first man of men, innumerable ordained, first father, called by thee I come, thy guide to the garden of bliss, thy seat prepared. I am the author of all this thou seest above, or round about thee or beneath. This paradise I give, count it thine, to till and keep, and of the fruit to eat. To every tree that in the garden grows, eat freely with glad heart, fair hair, no dearth. But of the tree whose operation brings knowledge of good and ill, which I have set the pledge of thy obedience and thy faith, amid the garden by the tree of life, remember what I warned thee, shun to taste, and shun the bitter consequence. For know, the day thou eatest thereof, my soul commend transgressed, inevitably thou shalt die. From that day mortal, and this happy state shalt lose, expelled from hence into a world of woe and sorrow.
Oh, by what name? For thou above all these, above mankind, or aught than mankind higher, surpassest far my naming. How may I adore thee, author of this universe, and all this good to man, for whose well-being so amply and with hands so liberal, thou hast provided all things. But with me I see not who partakes. In solitude, what happiness? Who can enjoy alone or all enjoying? What contentment find?
What canst thou, solitude? Is not the earth with various living creatures and the air resplendent, and all these at thy command to come and play before thee? Knowest thou not their language and their ways? They also know and reason not contemptibly with these fine pastime and bear rule. Thy realm is large.
Let not my words offend thee, heavenly power, my maker, my propitious while I speak. Hast thou not made me here thy substitute, and these inferior far beneath me set? Among unequals, what society can sort? What harmony or true delight?
A nice and subtle happiness I see thou to thyself proposest in the choice of thy associates, Adam, and will taste no pleasure, though in pleasure solitary. What thinkest thou then of me, and this my state? Seem I to thee sufficiently possessed, O happiness or not, of happiness or not? Who am alone from all eternity? For none I know second to me or like, equal much less. How much I then with whom I hold converse, save with the creatures which I made, and those to me inferior, infinite descents, beneath what other creatures are to thee.
To attain the height and depth of thy internal ways, all human thoughts come short. Supreme of things, thou in thyself art perfect, and thee is no deficiency found. Not so is man, but in degree the cause of his desire by conversation with his like to help collateral love and dearest amity. Thou in thy secrecy, although alone, best with thyself accompanied, seekest not social communication, yet so pleased canst raise thy creature to what height thou wilt.
What next I bring shall please thee, be assured, thy likeness, thy fit help, thy other self, thy wish exactly to thy heart's desire.
Mine eyes he closed, but open left the cell of fancy, my eternal sight, by which abstract as in a trance methought I saw, though sleeping where I lay, and saw the shape, still glorious before whom awake I stood, who stooping opened my left side, and took from thence a rib, with cordial spirits warm. The rib he formed and fashioned with his hands. Man-like, but different sex, so lovely fair, that what seemed fair in all the world seemed now mean, or in her summed up, in her constrained, in her contained, and in her looks, which from that time infused sweetness into my heart, unfelt before. She disappeared and left me dark. I waked to find her, or forever to deplore her loss, and other pleasures all abjure. When out of hope, behold her, not far off, such as I saw her in my dream, adorned with what all earth and heaven could bestow, to make her amiable. And she came, grace was in all her steps, heaven in her eye, in every gesture, dignity and love. Thus I have told thee all my state, and brought my story to the sum of earthly bliss, which I enjoy, and must confess to find in all things else delight indeed, but such as us or not, works in the mind no change, nor vehement desire these delicacies, I mean of taste and sight, smell, herbs, fruits, flowers, walks, and the melody of birds. But here far otherwise transported I behold, transported touch. Here passion felt, first I felt, commotion strange, and in all enjoyments, else superior and unmoved, here only weak against the charm of beauty's powerful glance o'er other creatures. For when I approach her loveliness, so absolute she seems, all higher knowledge in her presence falls, degraded. Wisdom in discourse with her loses discountenance, and like folly shows authority and reason on her weight. Greatness of mind and nobleness their seat, build in her loveliest, and create an awe about her as a guard angelic placed.
Accuse not nature. She hath done her part. Do thou thine. Be not diffident of wisdom. She deserts thee not, if thou dismiss not her, when most thou needst her nigh. By tripping overmuch to things less excellent as thyself perceivest. For what admirest thou, what transports thee so, and outside, fair no doubt, and worthy well thy cherishing, thy honoring, and thy love, not thy subjection. They with her thyself, what higher in her society finds attractive, human, rational love still. In loving thou dost well, in passion not.
Neither her outside form so fair, nor aught in procreation common to all kinds. So much delights me as those graceful acts, those thousand decencies that daily flow from all her words and actions, mixed with love and sweet compliance, which declare unfeigned union of mind, or in us both one soul. To love thou blamest me not, for love thou sayest leads up to heaven, is both the way and guide. Bear with me then, if lawful what I ask. Love not the heavenly spirits, and how their love express they? By looks only, or do they mix irradiance, virtual or immediate touch?
Let it suffice thee that thou knowest us happy, and without love, no happiness. Whatever pure thou in the body enjoyest, and pure thou wert created, we enjoy in eminence, and obstacle find none. Of membrane, joint, or limb, exclusive bars, easier than air with air. If spirits embrace, total they mix, union of pure with pure. Desiring, nor restrain conveyance, need is flesh to mix with flesh, or soul with soul. But I can now no more. The parting sun beyond the earth's green cape and verdant isles, Hesperian sets, my signal to depart.
Au revoir. Thank you, Scott. Thank you, everybody. Terrific reading. And of course, when we read through it twice, we see different things that we might not have seen the last time. I noticed that in the flashback with God and the Son, we noticed that Milton has hypothesized that the motivation for the creation of the cosmos is the fall of the fallen angels, that there's a sort of substitutionary or, my dog died, I got to go get another dog. To put it as profanely as and as recognizably as I can. Again, that is speculative. That's Milton's speculation. And when you write characters, one of the things that happens is what authors will often say, it's like they're writing themselves. Okay, there's a certain logic to what you're doing that at least subjectively in the writer's mind, it feels like you're following that rather than leading it. And that's something that lots of authors have. And when you're trying to answer questions, I mean, Milton is taking the traditional theology that he inherited from the Catholic Middle Ages and reforming it by narrative. And Reformed Christianity is his flag, the flag that he fights under. We call him a Puritan. He's probably about the most liberal of Puritans. He's in favor of divorce, for instance. So, but he is fleshing out a story, which in the original is really not a story. And once we've gone through this whole thing where motivation and character actions are explored and fleshed out, when we look at the original, you'll see how sparse it really is. And, you know, Milton wrote this in the 1660s. Okay, so for 1600 years, it had not occurred to anybody to do this, which is interesting on its own. Okay? But largely that's because of the way the scriptures were viewed and the way the scriptures were used homiletically and pedagogically for both preaching and for instruction. There was a certain way of using the scriptures, which Milton doesn't do at all. He makes the assumption that these are all real flesh and blood or real angels characters with a full life, and we can figure it all out if we just use the imagination that God gave us. And of course, that takes some real chutzpah. That takes some serious gall to think that you can do this with the scriptures. But it's an enormous achievement, and it changes perception of the original story.
It does.
In fact, Milton can be seen as the inadvertent author of the literal view of the Genesis story, of the Eden story. Okay, because in the Middle Ages and even before that, these things are not treated as literal, they're treated as figurative. And that's something else we'll take a look at in the end. Any questions?
Is this a book he's writing, or is it a play he's presenting it? Is it satire, or because you said it seems to be interpreted as a way of liberal thought during the time when he composed the work?
Well, there's lots and lots of speeches. And that is why it works as a drama. He did not compose it as a drama. This is Professor Richmond's. It's cutting it. It's not a satire.
I don't think it's satire. I think Milton is really bothered by these questions.
Very much.
I think they really affect his theology, and he wants to wrestle with them and figure them out because he's questioning. And the way he answers these questions for himself is to write them down as dialogues between people. And the ancient Greeks did that too. Plato and Aristotle did dialogues between people to kind of work out these philosophical debates or questions. But I think Milton was really bothered by these questions. I think he couldn't help but think about them, and he finally just had to write a poem, you know.
Yeah. And he had been wanting to write an epic poem for decades, and had wanted to write an epic poem about the birth of Britain, and wound up writing this instead. So
good idea.
Yeah, I mean, the epic poem was an object for him, something that he wanted to achieve. But you're right, it's these questions that were troubling him, the theological questions, the questions presented by the very idea of creation, sin, and fall. And
And
yeah, he fleshes
obedience,
them out.
I'm sorry, obedience and free will and
Right,
all of those things that imply that.
yeah,
Yeah, we haven't even gotten to those questions yet.
right.
He alludes to it.
Yeah, they were touched on in this particular scene.
Oh, in the scene, but we haven't
No.
expanded on it.
Right, right. And let's start there next time.
Okay.
That's where we'll start. The question of the question of obedience and peace. Obedience versus sin. Sin as disobedience.
In the 1600s, he diverted from the minds of the during the time of the Enlightenment.
No, he is before the Enlightenment.
You said 1600.
Yeah,
The Enlightenment was, the Reformation 1400.
he is a late Reformation figure.
Okay, he's way after that.
Yeah.
That's what I said. Yeah, so he's not taking into account any of those things that the Reformation that came out of the Reformation.
Oh, he very much is.
He is.
Very much is. He is a Puritan.
Okay.
He's about as reformed as they get, but he's also a poet, so he's a free thinker. He's not dogmatic, and he doesn't write dogmatics. He writes poetry, which has its own sort of built-in liberalism, because you are at play with language and your ideas.
Can do what he wants.
Well, yeah.
And get away with it, and they don't cut his head off.
Well, thank God.
Almost.
That's
And in Milton's case, they might very well have done that. He was adept at choosing his protectors.
Okay. Yeah, I haven't. This is the first time I'm looking at his work.
Right.
Mhm.
Right.
So,
But
Well,
thank you. I mean, thanks for the guy that put this in the form of a play. I don't, the first times I ever read Shakespeare, Hamlet, etc. I know it's written in the form of a play, but you read it kind of like you're reading poetry.
Right.
And you read it and you think you understand it, but then you see it performed and you find yourself feeling real emotion. You find yourself laughing. You didn't know there was a bit of humor in the whole thing when you read it,
Right. Right.
And so it's so much different to read the words when you're actually forced into imagining it, those words coming out of a real walking around body.
Yeah.
Or in the case of an angel, a real walking around angel.
Right.
Oh yeah, reading stuff out loud makes it different.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Brings it to life.
Yeah.
and to have an
All right.
idea or a background of what he's writing even makes it amplified, and you get
Right.
Yeah.
Well, let us, we've gone quite over and it's been wonderful. We actually managed to get through that scene twice. So
We did.
that's pretty great. And we will start next week with a discussion of the question of obey or fall. That's kind of the way I've put it in my shorthand notes. I have a commitment next Thursday night. So we may wind up doing this on Wednesday next week, or we can skip a week.
Okay.
And this is on YouTube. So I'll send everybody the link if you want
Oh
to
dear.
look at it. Yes,
So what's happening next week then?
I'll let you know, Ursula.
Oh, okay, I got it.
Yeah.
Sorry, we're a little late.
Bud, welcome.
Yeah, hi everybody.
Um,
I sorry,